Exit with Dr. Tina. Welcome to Exit with Dr. Tina, and I'm Dr. Tina, your host. And on today, our show will entail a special topic on toxic relationships. A little bit about toxic relationships. 32 million people are affected by some type of abusive relationship, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, or physically. So I'm here today with a very special guest by the name of Maria Shanon that is joining me on this very special topic. Hello, Maria. Thank you for coming on my show.
Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure. Now, a little bit about yourself. Give me a little history about yourself and tell me about your life and things that has brought you this far.
Well, I'm 22 years old. I am a mother of 5 beautiful children, and I'm also an expectant mother. Okay. I come from a family of abuse itself. My mother, she was in an abusive relationship with my father. Physically, mentally, emotionally. All of us kids were subject to that.
How many were in your family?
It was me. I have an older sister, and I have a younger brother.
So it's 3.
3.
So you're the oldest of a sibship of 3?
I am actually the middle child.
The middle child, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Shannon, let me tell you that 50% of the time, whenever there's a abusive father in the home, they normally are abusive with their children. Were you exposed to domestic violence? Also in abuse? Did your father abuse you too?
Actually, to be surprisingly honest, it was my mother who did the abusing on my behalf, because she labeled me as my father's favorite. I was my father's first child, and he was very excited because I was his first child. He had a baby girl, and she would always say that he favored me.
So your mother had another child prior to marrying your father?
Yes.
So under your sibship, it's just you and your other brother, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're the first of your fathers.
I'm the first of my fathers.
But you're in a blended family.
Yes, ma'am.
So you were labeled because of the hurt that your mother experienced from your father. So when she saw you, she saw your father.
Yes, ma'am. And that's exactly what my mother has told me throughout the years. And like I said, she was the one doing the abusing in my family.
Hurting people hurt people, and unfortunately, you were survived by the choice that your parents made to bring you into the world. And you had no control over who your father or mother chose to be with. And unfortunately, during this time or period, you showed up because you're a gift. And unfortunately, people don't know how to handle gifts like yourself. And I don't know what type of hits that you've taken as a child or as an adult, but normally the same thing that comes after your mother comes after you. So what was her history as a child?
That's funny you asked that, because my mother is very opposed to sharing that. I've asked my mother to share her history and her childhood, and I can tell that she's been hurt very bad as a child, and I could tell that she's been abused as a child. Yet she will not release it. She bottles up, she shuts down, and she will not say. So I know that she did suffer from a lot of abuse.
Was this physically, verbally, or sexually?
I think all aspects. I know that she was abandoned by my grandmother, which I guess I'm going to kind of go back to my grandfather favored my mother out of 7 children.
Okay.
My grandmother did not like that. And out of all 7 children that she had, 6 girls and 1 boy, because my grandfather favored my mother, that was his baby girl, my grandmother rejected my mother and sent her off and said, "Go. I don't want you anymore."
So is that what your mom did to you?
Not necessarily, but she was just very abusive. One thing that does stick with me and has stuck with me throughout my entire life is the very hurtful words my mother said to me.
So she was verbally abusive?
Verbally abusive towards me, physically abusive, emotionally abusive.
So how old were you when you left the home?
I actually didn't leave home until I was 18.
18?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When did you first have your first child?
I had my first child at the age of 15 years old. Mm-hmm.
Were you able to talk to your mother about sex and all the things that come with it, or was there no communication involved?
There was absolutely no communication involved throughout my entire life. The only thing I know about sex is what I learned in school. And being a college student at this point in time in my life, I have actually went back and kind of, I guess, processed the whole situation that I was never taught. Never was I taught about sex. I never had the birds and the bees talk. I never had anything. I mean, it was completely the only thing I knew about it was from what I learned in school, and in public schools, it's pretty minimal of what they teach you.
So you had to learn from school and experience and people.
Yes.
And unfortunately, those people are not in position to handle you properly. And they can tell you anything, and you're looking for love in all the wrong places. So where was your father at in all this when you were going through this transition?
My father was not in my life at all. He left. He was always in and out of our lives. He would come in, and for short periods of time, and then he would leave. And then he was nowhere to be found for months, and sometimes, maybe a year or so, and then he would come back. And it was always like that until I was about 10 or 11. And then he was out of our lives for up until I found out I was pregnant.
So unfortunately, as a child, never having the nurturance and dependency from a parent or from, did you have any other support, like a grandmother or anything?
No.
No support? No mentor?
No.
So basically, you kind of raised yourself and went through the process alone?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, it appears that you're experiencing a lot of pain right now.
Yes.
Are you ready to deal with it?
Yes.
Well, let me just say this. Sometimes we go through a cycle called generational and curses and generational cycles that is handed down from generations. And it appears to me that you've been one of the victims of this cycle, and it's up to you to stop it. And what I'm here today for is to confront the thing that is challenging your generation. You are the Joshua generation, and we should be able to put things in place, prevention, in order to be able to make your life work for you. And I'm here to give you the tools to do it. Are you ready to do it?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. We're going to deal with it. and we're going to deal with it today. Maria Shanon, are you ready to deal with it?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, let's do it. While Maria Shanon is working on her it's in the box, I have something that would help you out on today. Get my book, Traumatized, A Restored Man. It deals with all the things and all the ties that bind you, from generational curses to trauma bonding to toxic relationships to all of my wives. Make sure you get the book, because if you don't deal with it, it will deal with you. Dr. Tina, thank you. Welcome back to Exit with Dr. Tina. Maria Shanon is in the box, and she's going to reveal her it's. Maria, are you ready to come out of the box?
Yes, Dr. Tina. I'm ready.
Let's do it. So glad you made it back. You can have a seat. We're going to deal with some of these it's on the board. I see, Maria, that you have love, why, fear, abuse, anxiety, happy, and pain. There's so many mixed messages in this it will. But let's just deal with one of them, the pain. What is your pain level?
Right now,
From 1 to 10.
I would say my pain level is at its peak. It's at a 10.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But I'm going to give you the tools to get from pain to purpose if you let me take care of you tonight. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I want to just indicate to you that hurting people hurt people, and you were survived by the choice of your parents to bring you into the world. Unfortunately, when parents have children, sometimes they choose out of unhealthy appetites and for all the wrong reasons. And the children are affected by it. So it's important that you understand that it's a root cause to this, and you're not the one that should be the victim. So I don't want you to be the victim anymore. I want you to go from victim to victorious. And the way you do that is you identify what you have done and you deal with it. And the pain that you're feeling, what and who caused it?
I'd have to say that a relationship that I'm very recently getting out of has caused me a lot of pain, a lot of questioning.
Was it verbally or emotionally or physically abusive?
It was everything wrapped into one. All those emotions have played a significant part in the relationship, and it's hard.
Is that the father of the child that you're carrying right now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. He actually decided he just didn't want to be a dad anymore. He didn't want to be a boyfriend anymore, a fiance anymore. He chose another life. And he's continuing to choose another life, which is very hard for me. Very hard for me because out of all my relationships, this is actually the first relationship that I guess I have been left in. Usually it's me leaving the other person. This time it was him deciding that he didn't want to be part of a relationship anymore.
Well, let me explain that to you. It's an attachment disorder. And most of the time when people experience this type of trauma, they try to leave the person before the person leaves them. But in this case, when it appears that you were close to love or closest, that the same spirit of abandonment that was in your father was in him. And unfortunately, the same thing that came after your mother came after you. And so I'm giving you an option today to release it, because this is too much for you. There's a root to it, and you have to identify it. And you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and making a mistake. The next man that comes in your life should be able to complement your greatness, cover you and all of your 6 children, not just marry you, but marry them, and complement your greatness, because you seem to be a very intellectual and beautiful young lady that can go a long way. You look better in your future.
Thank you.
So, are we ready to deal with this individual?
Yes.
All right. We have an expert in the house today by the name of Miss Tara Ray, and we would like for her to come and join us, a licensed therapist from C.O.P.E of Lansing. How you doing, Tara?
Doing fine.
Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know, we were just talking about how she said she was so into leaving people before they left her, but in this last case, he was able to leave her before she had the opportunity. And I was trying to tell her the root is an attachment disorder because of trauma-induced pain. Can you share a little bit about that?
I think that in dealing with this type of trauma, Maria has a very interesting story. And I don't know, and we've talked about her level of comfort and how much she will share of her story, because, again, it's very interesting. But I think that in Maria, in that attachment disorder, those issues and the running, that has been her way of coping. And so in this instance, this particular individual has taken her power, because he didn't really leave her, he ran away. And that's usually her mode of operation. And so now she's in a place where she's having to figure out what to do.
Well,
in the
like
same
why?
place.
Why? Because she's never had a person that had the same spirit that she had.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened, they trauma bond, but this time he got the ups on you.
This time.
And let's say the last time. Can we say that? Because I believe God got great things for her. And they say that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a change. So what has to happen, young lady? You have to make the change. And as far as the trauma that came from your childhood, it's time for you to release. There's some forgiveness that has to be involved. And sometimes you got to reset. You got to go back and make the corrections. And even though you were the victim in some of them, forgiveness is a part of your plan. Can you do that?
Yes.
Tara, is there anything else you wouldn't want to add to the trauma that she's experienced in her reenactment of the behavior? And now that she feels the pain at this level, what type of approach do you think that would be best for her during this transition?
And if she doesn't mind, she and I talk a lot about how she needs to deal with this trauma thing. And I think we even call it that, this trauma thing, because she has a way of sitting in the seat and running away from that. Because over the time that we've worked together, we like each other. So we can have small talk, but when it comes down to doing that business, it's this running thing that happens, even sitting there in the seat. And we're dealing with that right now, because what we've been talking about recently is the fact that she does have children. And if she doesn't get a handle on this, then that same issue will plague her children. And she doesn't want that. So now I think there's more of a willingness to do that work. But that's key, that when you have these type of issues that go unaddressed, then it's a perpetual cycle that continues. And it's spiritual, we know that, but it even happens in the natural world the same way. Even though we know that the root is very spiritual and deep, you see it in the natural.
Well, that is so true. And since we've identified the issues with it, it's 50% of the problem. I don't know how many young ladies are out there that's looking for love in all the wrong places. It's not a thing to just be with somebody, because you can be with somebody and still be alone. It's important that you get someone in your life that has the capacity to love you and to cover you emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and physically. It's important that you find somebody that has the financial capacity to cover you in your home. And today, we have a young lady that is disclosing on a level to embrace all the young girls out there, to let them know that it's time for you to start choosing healthy. We were just speaking with our guest, Maria Shanon, who was in a toxic relationship. And not only is she in a toxic relationship, but she is considered a toxic wife and also a baby mama wife. And today we're going to evaluate her situation and come up with some solutions. And I have with me Tara Ray that is going to give a presentation or evaluation of her situation.
When you're dealing with a person such as Maria, what you're looking at not only is what presents itself on the surface, but also if we think about our clinical impressions, when you deal with diagnosis, there are 5 axes that you deal with. And briefly, they are axis 1, which deals with your mental health issues. Axis 2 would be any mental retardation or personality disorders. Axis 3 would be any physical concerns that the client might have. Axis 4 is basically their social situation. So if they have any issues going on in their life that could exacerbate their mental health issues. And axis 5 is a global functioning score. And I would say that Maria, if we work backwards, her global functioning score would be about a 65, which means that she's functioning, but she's got a lot of work to do. She's got some struggles. She presents very well, but if you look at some of those axis 4 things, she's got problems with her primary support system. She's had involvement in other systems that have impacted her life. She might be dealing with some pervasive poverty type issues. She might have housing issues. All of those things would qualify on axis 4, and they will affect her global functioning.
Well, wouldn't you think that, seeing that she's a bright girl, but because she has, 5 children?
Almost 6.
Well, let's say, how many baby daddies are we talking about?
4.
Never legally married.
No.
Normally live together partners.
Yes.
So what do we have here? We have a person that has not been able to do what? Totally depend on her primary support system, which is herself. Because It looks like most of these men are deadbeat dads.
That's how she would describe them, yes.
So how do you put together a plan for someone like Maria? Anytime you can lay down and have sex and deliver a seed, then you need to know how to work. Mm-hmm. If a man don't work, he don't eat, right? Mm-hmm. And if you have children, you're supposed to protect your children. Now, what type of state are these men in that she's, trauma bonding with?
Anywhere from pervasive mental illness to possibly dealing with some issues that would lead to some of those axis 2 things that we've talked about, which could be either a personality disorder or some mental retardation kind of issues.
So all the men that she has chosen have some type of emotional injury that they don't have the capacity to cover her or her children.
That's right.
And not one out of the 5 baby daddies. 4 baby daddies and 5 children are able to meet those standards.
No, not one.
So what type of plan do we put in? Because I'm not just saying this just to say it, but there's some people out there that may be under the wife of what we call the baby mama wife. Maybe you never legally married, but let me tell you, there's hope for you. There's hope for you. You need to get into therapy and identify some of these things that are causing you to reach for people that do not have the emotional or intellectual or what I call the psychological capacity to cover you. And that is important. And if they don't have the capacity, not only that, financial capacity, they're putting you in a position where you are multiplying as what we call baby mama wives. Now, 72% of Detroit males are not in the home. And most of the people are single parents. Now, we need to do something about this. And if a man is not in place, I always say this: women are misplaced and children are displaced. So we have all these children are being displaced and they're not being covered properly. And I think that it's time for a plan. And that's one of the wives that I want to make sure that we help and reset and get rid of the defaults so that they can live productive lives and one day choose a healthy man that can cover them emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, physically, and financially. And the sexual part can come later. But right now, let's just pass, they're putting that first. But I'm saying let's put it in order. There are some things that we need to do. And if we don't start with this generation, what's going to happen?
It's the living your life intentionally started for her with a goal because she's doing a lot better. Okay. She really is. It started with the goal. And one of those rules is you can't do anything contrary to your goal. So if you see yourself moving that way, which is part of that cognitive restructuring, you do something in your behaviors to step back. And that's part of it. You step back, you take an inventory of what you got going on, and then you make a different decision. And that happens every single solitary day in her life. And the first day that she chooses not to do that is when she has a fallback. So this is a constant struggle and battle, but the success is in the fact that she can get back up again and go to the next day.
We're going to deal with it right now. And if you would join me in this commitment, I would love for you to hold hands with me for a release. Is that okay? Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, before we do that, let's see if we can get you to spin the wheel. Today is a new season, and I want you to repeat after me. I release every toxic relationship.
Every toxic relationship.
I released everyone who has hurt me. And hurt my life. My future. And has been a part of my pain. Today is my new season. And I release it. Amen.
Amen.
You can exit, Maria.
Thank you.
It will work if you work it. And then you can say, at the end of the day, it is over. God bless you.